Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Filipsson. Happy New Year to all of you, and welcome to a new year with Sports Management Podcast. This episode will be a short summary of some of the highlights from the year 2021. In episode 12, we heard James O'Brien from Formula One Experience. I spoke to James prior to the 2021 season, and he talked about the logistical challenges that comes with organizing their events during a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, logistically, it can be quite a challenge at times. I mean, obviously, if you look at the 2021 calendar, the back end of this year means we're going to be operating at 12 venues in 16 weeks. I mean, that presents a little bit of a challenge, not only logistically in terms of getting our equipment from race to race, but also how we staff that as well. I have a fantastic team that works with me that allows us to present and produce all of these experiences. But obviously, you run into a little bit of human fatigue, and we've got to be very careful with how we manage our talent, our staff, and our legends as well, and all of our special guests. So it does become a little bit of a schedule headache as you try and manage the season. But what we do is we work with some amazing partners. Our logistical partners are second to none. They do a great job in advising us on the best routes to take. Some of our equipment will go via sea freight, some of it will go road, some of it will go air. And really it's a little bit like, I guess, a game of Tetris, just making sure that you can fit everything into the right place at the right time and having it there on time. You know, I've been doing this for a lot of years now, and I think I've encountered everything from earthquakes to floods to typhoons to volcanoes erupting, all sorts of things. But thankfully, you know, when the lights go out, we're there, we're producing, we're happening, and we're making sure the show goes on.
Another company which adapted to the pandemic was Bauer Hockey. In episode 13, VP of Marketing Mary Kay Messier explained how Bauer transitioned from making ice hockey equipment to produce PPE equipment to frontline workers.
It was really incredible. I think, you know, as hockey was shutting down, obviously our plants shut down as well. However, our people didn't, and our team in Blainville, which is, you know, basically the NASA of hockey, where our engineers are, they started thinking about how could they help. Would there be any way they could put their skills and expertise to make a difference and help the frontline workers? I think many people in our company have relationships with frontline workers, whether doctors, nurses, first responders. And so they got together and figured out how they could create the medical shields and repurpose our plants to manufacture. And then, of course, it was up to us to figure out how to get them out to these frontline workers. So we went on the media, and within 48 hours, we had orders for over 1 million units. And I think, you know, the story is so incredible because it really is about a team stepping up to really give back to the entire community. And our team not only led the march on creating and manufacturing face shields, but then also publishing what is generally considered trade secrets in how we manufactured and what we did with our plant to allow other companies to do the same and cut down on the time that it would take to ramp their plants up. And our team also worked incredibly hard to help facilitate those relationships. So I think for all of us at Bauer Hockey, it was one of the proudest moments of our team. And just to see, you know, the impact of that and see our Bauer logo on these medical shields with people that were risking their lives to help support those in greatest need.
Speaking of ice hockey, Nina Wennerström was the first female ice hockey agent in Sweden, and now she is also the founder of the sports agency Wesport. And in episode 15, she explained how it happened.
Yeah, after my short career, I went to Stockholm School of Economics. I studied, and when I graduated, I moved to US, to Washington, to work for one of the biggest agencies in the world. And I love that. I love the work actually from day one, but I was an employee there many years, and there were certain things in the US culture I thought was, you know, maybe it was too much maximizing profit sometimes instead of focus on the people. It was more money driven than people driven, I would say. So that was one thing I was often considering, that if I have the courage to start my own agency, I want to do that differently. And secondly, I was evaluating the Scandinavian market and what they do well in US. There are not so much competition here as in the US when it comes to these companies and sport agencies. So I thought there were room in the marketplace to develop something like Wesport. And thirdly, the reason was also I became a mother, and to then be an employee and in the States is very tough, when you have small kids. And I wanted to be my own boss and decide my own hours, and most importantly, be a mom. And so that was also a very strong reason to start the company, for lifestyle or life balance, basically.
Nina has since this episode taken on a new role at Wesport. She is now acting as a managing partner and will be focusing on the business development. Someone else who has gotten a new role is Josef Boumedienne. He stepped in as head coach for Brynäs and saved them from relegation, and in June, after our interview, he was promoted to Director of Pro Scouting at Columbus Blue Jackets. In episode 18, Josef is talking about his previous role as Director of European Scouting.
It's been changed a little bit throughout the years. We have area scouts throughout Europe and North America. And then the area scouts are responsible for their area: Sweden, Finland, Russia, Czech, Switzerland, and so on, Germany. So my job has been to organize and make sure we have coverage in all the areas in Europe, and then traveling around and watching the top players basically for the draft, and compare the top players from Russia to the Finnish, to the Swedish and Czech and Swiss, so on. So that's basically the job description for the Director of European Scouting. But the last few years, I've been focusing more on the pro scouting side, watching the professional players that are older than 22, 23, or the players drafted for the other NHL teams. So I haven't had that much to do with the draft, more scouting the pro players.
Data in sports has become much more important. Yet, not enough organizations leverage it in the right way. Fiona Green is an expert on data and CRM and gives her view on why in episode 23.
Marcus, it's the reason we produced an e-learning course. So I wrote the book because when I first moved into this field, I had to do a lot of self-learning, self-teaching, and it took me ages. You Google what is CRM and all you see is adverts for Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce. So the first reason I wrote the book was to try and make it easier for people to understand what this stuff's really about, because I'm not an academic. I think I write in a very easy style that people can pick it up quite quickly. But then, because I felt that wasn't enough, that's when I launched the e-learning course, like your sponsor partner as well. E-learning is such a fantastic way for people to educate. And I guess that was exacerbated because of COVID, with people needing to do things from their desk, from their home office, etc. That's why I created the course, because it is such a complex area. And there are many universities that are trying to include data into their modules. But in the same way that there's a shortage of data knowledge in industry, there's a shortage of data knowledge in those courses. I think that data is growing in its importance, and it will continue to grow in its importance. And more podcasts are asking me to talk about data. News articles are talking about data. So I think that university courses bringing more data into their sports management, sport businesses or sports marketing courses is going to happen. And there are examples of universities already either giving whole modules over to data, or even dedicated courses to data, but just not with the quantity that I would hope. I would hope there would be a lot more sports business courses with whole modules dedicated to data.
With 2 months away from the Winter Olympics, it is uncertain however it will take place or not. Michael Payne from episode 29 talks about how it was like to organize the first ever postponed Olympics in Tokyo.
It was unique. I mean, to stage the Olympic Games in the middle of a global pandemic was unprecedented. I think, I'm not sure everybody appreciated the incredible complexity of what it meant to postpone the games. The operational logistics for the Tokyo Organizing Committee. For the IOC, it was a massive task with no pre-experience. So as I said at the beginning, it was a miracle the games took place. But I think it would be wrong to start trying to compare one games to the next. These were very special circumstances. For the athletes, yes, they were disappointed not to be performing in front of crowds, but they were also very, very relieved that the Olympics were taking place, because they were scared that they would be cancelled. And that then would be their one, for 60 or 70% of all the Olympic athletes, they only have one shot at the games. So, a whole generation would have lost their Olympic opportunity. And that was one of the reasons why President Bach and the IOC really drove forward to leave no stone unturned as to whether it would be possible to stage the games, because the alternative of cancellation was really, something that you wanted at all costs to try and avoid.
During the summer, I read the book High Impact Life with NFL agent Kelli Masters. The book talks about her professional journey and how she started her own agency, KMM Sports. After I read the book, I wanted to speak to Kelli, and thankfully she agreed. Here is her story from episode 31 about how it is to work in a male-dominant field.
What I've realized is there are a lot of industries that are considered male-dominated, that have for a long time, most of the people in the industry have been men. And, I'm not trying to say men are bad or men are not good at what they do. Not, by any means. I have a job because my clients, who happen to be men, young men, believe in me, and I have to work with men and negotiate with men. So there's not really I don't view it as if, men are the enemy. But when I did become an agent, I was a bit surprised that not just there weren't a lot of women, that didn't really bother me, but that people would question my ability to be an agent simply because of my gender. And that didn't make sense to me. Because in my mind, I thought, gosh, first of all, my gender shouldn't matter, but I feel like what makes me unique, every agent wants to be unique. Every agent wants to say, here are my strengths and here's what makes me different from everybody else that you're considering working with. And for me, it was natural. It was, as a woman and as Kelli, as myself, here are the strengths that I have to offer, and here are the things that make me stand out from the crowd. And so I saw being a woman is actually an advantage in a lot of ways, because it did make me automatically different from, 95 or more percent of the rest of the field. And so I saw it as an advantage, and I just was undeterred when I was told. I literally was told to my face. That's another story in the book. I was told to my face by a male agent that I really looked up to, that women would never make it in the business. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I'm so thankful now, because there are many other young women who have now followed, that path. I'm not going to say follow in my footsteps, because I've not been the only woman to do this. But I think the entry into the business, it's a tough business no matter who you are, but the entry barrier is no longer there. Women are not being told you can't do this because of your gender. And so I feel like that's a win, that not that we're going to get any advantages by being women, other than just being ourselves, but that there's not, we're not being questioned or held back because of who we are. And so I think that, to me, that's a victory, because I know, my players appreciate who I am and how I fight for them and how I protect them. And that's what players are looking for. They're looking for someone, male, female, color, doesn't matter. They're looking for someone who believes in them, that they can trust to be their advocate. And I think I've proven over time that women are just as capable of that.
This was just a very short summary of some highlights that stuck with me from this year. Which episode was your favorite? What was your favorite moment? DM me on Instagram or Twitter @SportsMPodcast and let me know. You can also reach me on my email sportsmpodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to a 2022 with more great guests, and I hope you stay with me. And if I can ask you for one thing, Spotify has recently created a rating system. So if you could go in and leave a 5-star review for Sports Management Podcast, I would be really grateful. Thank you for a great 2021 and a happy new year.